Welcome to Level 3. I'm Mary Gay George, and we're looking through the artistry at the piano, and we are now in the intermediate level, not the early intermediate level, but the intermediate level. We have 3 levels devoted to this period of their study because it's where they really prepare to play any kind of music, and they need a lot of development and understanding and just plain experience at the keyboard in order to make this work easily and comfortably and with great pleasure for them. So, starting with lesson 9, and I'm looking in Musicianship, book 3 on page 4, we have taught the scales always by tetrachords, and we are studying minor scales in level 3. And the minor scale is minor, but when we get into the natural, the harmonic, and the melodic minor, we find that the upper tetrachord is different for each one of those 3 scales. And that's very interesting. You see that they have always the minor tetrachord to start with, and then they have another tetrachord, then they'll have that wild one with the step and a half between the augmented second, between the 6th and the 7th degree. And in the melodic minor, going up, the upper tetrachord is major of all things and comes down in the natural minor. So I want them to know all 3 of those scales, not just one. And then we have them change the notes that are here by adding the correct accidentals and playing them, and then we show them that they know them all by having them practice all of them in the same 3 divisions that we had for major. So those divisions work for major and minor scales, and to have just 3 for all of those major and minor scales is really a gift to the students to simplify the whole process. Then we get into reading chords in octave position. These are triads to begin with, and we show them the fingering, and of course the emphasis is on the left hand. When do you use finger 4, and when do you use finger 3, and why? Artistry always gives the answer to that question. Why do we have to do that? And the answer is always there for you so that they won't struggle with it and get irritated by it. And then we have a transposition exercise where they play them first hands alone and then hands together in all the major and minor keys. Another adventure in level 3 is that we begin reading and playing with 16th notes. Now, to prepare for that, at the end of level 2, I begin assigning faster tempos so that when they come to level 3 and they have to play 16th notes, it won't seem difficult to them because we will have started to move tempos forward earlier than that, you see. We have the rhythm exercises, we have our fingering exercises. I forgot to mention that we have fingering exercises all the way through the book that the students write in the fingering for every single note. We wouldn't do that with the piece, but this shows us that they know the principles of how to use what we've learned, contractions and shifts and crossings and so forth, and then the extended position and the octave position triads. And here again, the first fingering exercise on page 9 is in simple meter and in F major, and the left-hand one is in compound meter, 12/16, and it's got octaves in it because we're to that point now, and triads in octave position at the end. And then we have our keyboard patterns. And we have 4 pieces that use, every single one of the pieces in Musicianship 3 uses 16th notes in a different way, both in simple meter and in compound meter. They come out of here really knowing what to do with 16th note rhythms when they see them. They won't be fudging. In lesson 10, we begin the order of sharps and flats and how that relates to the major key signatures. We continue our exploration of 16th notes and keyboard patterns with all kinds of things happening, and performance pieces. Allegro, petite berceuse, a little lullaby. Allegro moderato, a little melodrama. In lesson 11, we study inverted triads in the octave position. Minor. So we go through the circle of fifths, but going from major to the relative minor to the major to the relative minor to give them a refreshment of how that works with their ear going from major to minor, it makes it just that much more interesting. And here we're in Division 3, so they're writing in their key signature and marking all their information that they need to have. And the keyboard patterns, likewise. Pieces, German, yearning, verlangen, air, a melody, a beautiful melody. Andante comodo, conveniently walking. Un mémoire piquant, French for a poignant memory. These are very colorful pieces. In Lesson 12, we learned chords, seventh chords. And we don't just give them the dominant seventh. That's a very important triad, but it it has other relatives that are very useful in jazz as well as in impressionistic music. Debussy loved to use different kinds of seventh chords. So we have how to write them and so forth in musicianship, but I want also to show you in Workbook 2 that we give them 6 different forms of seventh chords. And they get to know the sound of these, and when they're improvising, they take great delight. Did you hear my half-diminished seventh chord? And so forth. Or my minor major seventh chord. That's always a favorite with them. That has a minor triad and a major seventh, and has a very kind of ambiguous sound. What am I, minor or major? And they learn how to write these chords, how to recognize them, how to invert them, and how to classify them. Then they learn, it's still in Workbook 3, that's where we are, how to identify chords on the grand staff. And this is a very important process because they need to know that when they're playing hymns, for instance. They know which notes they have to play and which notes they might be able to leave out without destroying the melodic lines. And we teach them voice leading also when we teach them about dominant seventh chords, for instance, so that they're aware of those principles. And so we do that, and then we have analysis and an aid to memory. Look what they do here. They're going to write the classification for each chord below the grand staff. They're going to memorize these classifications in the correct order, and they're going to play those blocked chords and say the classification aloud. All this is done by memory. Then they repeat step C, which is playing the chords and saying their name aloud until you can play the phrases easily by memory. Be sure to play at the dynamic levels called for in the music. And then finally, but don't read it, they just play this piece by memory. They have never read it and played it on the piano, but through these processes that they just went through, they have this securely memorized. If you require your students to play by memory, you must teach them how to memorize. And that's one thing that Artistry took very seriously, because throughout the workbook series we have these analysis and aid to memory exercises, and they get more grand and glorious with each level. So you see, in level 3, new things happening constantly, which is true in Artistry at the piano in general, but here these are big steps and exciting steps, and they're ready to take them. Thank you for watching, and remember that there's a great deal more information in this tour besides these short introductions, and you'll find them laid out carefully in the tour.